Hello and welcome to part 1 of a 5-part series called The Belonging Place. I am your tour guide and host for this program, Janelle Dill. I serve as the epilepsy advocate, disability advocate, and ambassador of Purple for my hometown of Somerset County, Pennsylvania. In this series, we will be discussing the common myths and misnomers attached to disabilities, some common phraseology you may have heard of, and we will be discussing the 5 stages towards creating an interdependent community. I call the system ISBIB. ISBIB is short for identifying our fears and phobias, sharing our scars and wounds, breaking the barriers that create a lack of communication, including those who have disabilities and accommodating to their needs, and finally, bringing about a sense of community to be a part of the belonging place. This will take a lot of time and effort on both parties. And for this first part, we have to explore what we consider a disability. If you have a group of your friends together, or if you are with your co-workers, perhaps some members of your youth group, or maybe it's just you, I want you to write down or tell me if you are on Facebook, you can look me up on facebook.com/nooneIsIgnored, and I want you to write down what you consider as a disability. Go ahead and take time right now and write down what you consider a disability. So what did you come up with for your answer into my question, what is a disability? Some of your answers have probably varied. You're probably picturing somebody who has a cane, maybe, or perhaps you're picturing somebody who has perhaps a service dog. Maybe you consider somebody who's in a wheelchair, or has crutches, or a cane, or some other medical device. But how many of you have pictured somebody who has a disability that is more hidden, like diabetes, maybe epilepsy, or even something a little more hidden like a mental illness such as depression? Probably a number of you have not considered that as a form of a disability. So what is a disability? According to Webster's dictionary, it's defined as an infirmity or handicap, a lack of ability, incapacity, or inability to act, feebleness, weakness, unable, or you're crippled. Society considers disabilities as a change in one's physical, mental, or physical health, an inability to connect in a social setting, a lack of communication, weakness, incapability to change one's situation, or they're unable to conform to societal standards of normal. For this first activity, I want you to get into your groups, or if you don't have a family group or a group of your co-workers, I want you to break up to get into your activity, for this activity, into groups of 2, and I want you to do the following. Get out a piece of paper or a note card and write down something that makes you uncomfortable. It could be something you are afraid of that's physical or psychological. And I want you to share what makes you uncomfortable. If you can, I want you to explain why that thing makes you uncomfortable. When we come back, I will ask you a couple of questions about sharing your fears and phobias. Okay, now you have probably shared some of your fears and phobias. What was easy telling someone about your fear? What was hard? Do you find yourself able to relate to someone who has something different about him or her? And if so, how? History has a lot to say about disabilities, from ancient times to the modern times. And over the centuries, disabilities have appeared as mythical monsters or mayhem. An example of a film, you're probably familiar with the monster Godzilla. Curses by the gods or goddesses, or even God, medical marvels, or a divine marking by a god or a goddess. There are many different medical cures also in archaeological research. One of the first known treatments with frankincense was discovered in 4400 BC in the ancient Near East for people who had that you can use to introduce your family and your peer social groups to disabilities. Films like Shrek, Finding Dory, Frozen, A Dolphin's Tale, if you want to get teens and tweens. For more teens and adult appropriate films, there's Still Alice, 51st States, Garden State, and Electricity. If you have any problems finding these films, I will give you a list of films that you can check out on your own time, posted on Facebook, or you can email me at plasmnetic, that's PLASMNETIC, @gmail.com, and I will send you a list of all the films, and you can choose a film to discuss fears and phobias. Some of the material in the films are difficult and not easy to handle. It's important for teens and discuss some of the more adult themes and some of the difficult language that could be in there. So, my questions to you while watching these films are the following. How does the character characters overcome their fears and phobias? In what ways do they feel set back due to the nature of the disability and in their interaction with others? Also, what do you think is still in existence about the fear and phobia, and perhaps a myth about the disability? These are some things I want you to consider when watching these films. So, now we've discussed our fears and phobias. Do you still have any fears and phobias? Perhaps you have a few about those who have disability. I hope with this class you'll be able to get outside your bubble and go and meet somebody who has a disability. I will be posting on my Facebook page a number of stories about people who have disabilities. I will be sharing my story on my Facebook page, and you can read about it, and I also have a YouTube video to discuss my disability, epilepsy, and how it's affected my life and where it has gone from there. I hope you watch it and get educated about it. I also hope that you stick around and are willing to share with me this experience and walk through these stages with me about different disabilities and how we can work together. I want you to chew on this before we move on to part 2. There are 17 million people in the United States who have a disability. Many of those with disabilities are falling through the cracks. There's a term in psychology called falling off the cliff. This is those who have a disability to find work, services, or employment after graduation. They have to fight to find services and employment, which is often very difficult. They're often unprepared after school to find one-on-one programs and finding places that will serve their needs and to find adequate care to help them. Each one of us can help make a difference. Each one of us can find somebody who has a disability. And if you don't know somebody who has a disability, it's important for you to find ways to interact with those who have a disability. It could be somebody in your neighborhood. It could be somebody at a old folks home. It could be at a group home even. It could be somebody in your, as simple as in your church or your neighborhood. Or even your school. So I hope I can educate you on how you can better communicate with those who have a disability, and that together we can create a belonging place. Stay tuned for part 2 of the belonging place. In the next section, we will be discussing our scars and wounds, and some of the strange but true historical remedies that were used over the years to treat those who have a disability. I am your guide, Janelle Dill, and I hope you will join me for next time. Until then, ta-ta!
Thought if I wanted to leave, kept these words in my mind.